Welcome back to the Silent Husband Club. We've missed you, and we're truly sorry for the long break in stories. From now on, we'll do our best to bring you a new story every single day. Imagine spending 17 years raising a child, pouring your love, your time, your soul into them, only to find out, one quiet evening, that none of it was yours to begin with. Not even the blood in their veins. That's the night everything broke inside me. If this story hits you deep, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. It helps our channel grow and makes sure you never miss the next episode. I used to think the worst thing midlife would bring me was regret over some cheap tattoo or a beer belly I couldn't shake. But I was wrong. So wrong. What hit me came from a small, plastic tube labeled gene trace a own DNA kit my daughter had ordered out of curiosity. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm 44 years old. And a few weeks ago, I found out that the one thing in my life that gave me meaning, my daughter Lena, is not mine. Not by blood, not by biology. 17 years of believing I was her father, undone by a string of digital numbers and cold, clinical charts. And my wife Vanessa, she'd known all along. Even now, as I try to say this out loud, I feel like I'm drowning. Back when it all started, Vanessa and I were just two broke kids working at a roadside diner in a small town in Oregon. I was 24, she was 25. I remember the way she wiped her hands on that old apron, her laugh echoing off the fryers, the sparkle in her eyes when we talked about dreams neither of us could afford. She had ambition even then. Said she wanted to be a writer. And me? I just wanted a life that didn't look like the wreckage of my parents' marriage. I had grown up watching my father drink himself to sleep and my mother pretend not to notice. That kind of quiet suffering carves itself into your bones. I swore I'd never live like that. So when Vanessa and I started dating seriously, I thought I'd found my miracle. We dated for 4 years before tying the knot. Things moved fast after that. Just a few months into our marriage, she told me she was pregnant. Lena was born the next spring. I remember holding her for the first time. Tiny, perfect. She had Vanessa's lips, my mother's eyes, or so I thought. I cried. God, I cried. It felt like I was breaking a curse, starting something beautiful from scratch. A clean legacy. We decided not to have more kids. One was enough. And honestly, it let us focus everything we had emotionally, financially into raising Lena the best we could. She was everything to us. To me. Vanessa went back to school a few years later to get her master's in literature. I supported her every step. It wasn't easy, and there were times I was working long shifts while she wrote late into the night or traveled to readings, but I believed in her. I believed in us. She found moderate success as a fiction writer. Nothing crazy, but she had a following. And with every book release, she'd go on the road for signings, events, interviews. I stayed home, made dinners, helped Lena with homework, kissed her goodnight. So when Lena brought up the DNA kit, I thought nothing of it. She said her friends had done it, found out they were part Russian, or Nigerian, or God knows what. It was all a bit of fun, she said. I smiled, humored her, and agreed. We sent in her tests while Vanessa was out of town again, on one of her book tours. I asked if we should wait for her, but Lena said it didn't matter, her mom could do it later. 6 weeks passed. Long enough to forget about it entirely. Until one night, when Vanessa was finally back home and Lena said we should all sit down and go through the results together. That's when I noticed the first crack. Vanessa didn't want to do it. Said she was tired. Then tried to distract us with a movie. Lena was persistent, though typical of her. She pulled up the laptop and logged in. What I saw next will haunt me for the rest of my life. At first, it seemed fun. My results were what I expected, mostly German, some Dutch. Lena's, however, they didn't quite match up. There were traces of Southeast Asian ancestry that didn't make sense. I assumed it came from Vanessa. But then we checked relatives. Lena's list didn't include me. Not a glitch. Not a missing update. Just not there. She had Vanessa in her profile. But not me. I was absent. I could feel the blood drain from my face. I told myself it was a tech issue, that maybe the system just hadn't synced. But then we checked Vanessa's results. No Southeast Asian ancestry. None. That was the moment I knew. Something inside me just snapped. I looked at Vanessa. She avoided my eyes. She made a few dry comments, tried to steer the conversation. But I could see it in her, the fear. The guilt. The realization that I had seen the truth. I stood up and left the room. Lena tried to follow me, but I told her I needed air. That I'd be back. The cold night air didn't help. It just burned deeper. I walked for what felt like hours, trying to make sense of it all. Every laugh, every bedtime story, every birthday candle we'd ever blown out together, it was all a lie. And yet, she was still my daughter. At least, that's what my heart screamed. But my brain, it was already preparing for a life without her. When I got back home, Lena was sitting on the porch, knees tucked under her chin, tears silently running down her face. The moment she saw me, she jumped up and hugged me so tight it nearly broke me. She was trembling, trying to say something through the sobs. She kept muttering that it must be some kind of mistake. Maybe a glitch. Maybe the system got it wrong. And I nodded. I nodded like a coward because I didn't have the strength to shatter her heart with the truth. But deep down, I knew. I had known for hours already. I had seen it all written on Vanessa's face. We went back inside, and Vanessa was still sitting there, on the couch, pale and quiet, as if she'd aged 10 years in one evening. She looked at me like a deer in headlights, but I didn't have anything left to give her. Not words. Not rage. Not even eye contact. I walked past her like she was a stranger and disappeared into the bedroom. Lena followed me. She didn't ask questions. She just lay down next to me and rubbed my back like she used to do when I was sick. My own daughter, no, someone else's daughter, comforting me for something she couldn't even understand. I couldn't cry anymore. I'd emptied every last drop of emotion into the pavement during my walk. My body gave up and crashed into sleep, but even in dreams, the pain clawed at my insides. I remember seeing Lena as a baby again, laughing in my arms, but her face would always shift into someone I didn't know. I'd wake up gasping, heart racing, drenched in guilt and fury. The next morning, I came downstairs to see Vanessa asleep on the couch, curled up like a child hiding from her own mistakes. Lena was already in the kitchen, dressed for school, flipping pancakes like it was just another day. She looked up and smiled when she saw me, but I saw the fear behind her eyes. The same fear I had. The fear of loss. I offered to drive her to school, which I never did. She said nothing, just nodded, picked up her backpack, and followed me to the car. We didn't speak for most of the ride. Then, just before she got out, she whispered, "I'm really sorry, Dad." And I swear, something broke inside me again. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because hearing her call me Dad made it all the more unbearable. I was her dad. I still was. But I wasn't. And that contradiction was killing me from the inside out. When I got home, Vanessa was waiting. She was sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee like it was the only warmth she could find in the entire house. I walked in, and for the first time in days, I didn't avoid her eyes. I needed to hear her say it, to confirm what I already knew. So I asked, as calmly as I could, "Who is he?" She didn't answer right away. She just looked at me, mouth slightly open, trying to find the right words or maybe the right lie. But I didn't need a name. The silence was already my answer. She eventually muttered something about a man she met just after starting her graduate program. Said it was a one-time mistake. Said she didn't even know his name anymore. That it meant nothing. Just a night. Just a lapse. Just betrayal, wrapped in excuses. I asked her why. She had no answer. Not one that mattered. She tried to say it was stupid, that she was scared back then, that we were talking about starting a family and she didn't want to lose me. She thought she could bury it. Pretend it never happened. And she had until the truth found its way into our living room like a grenade, blowing up the life we had built. She said, "You're the only father she's ever known." As if that erased the lie. As if those words could unmake the betrayal. I told her that from the moment I saw those results, the entire structure of our family had collapsed. That it wasn't just a secret. It was a crime of the soul. And I couldn't live in that lie anymore. I told her I'd be filing for divorce. That there was no coming back from this. That the house, the meals, the quiet nights reading books together, all of it was over. She broke down. Begged. Pleaded. But it didn't matter. The Vanessa I had loved had vanished years ago and never told me she'd gone. I packed what I could in 3 hours. Just the essentials. I didn't want to be there when Lena got home. I didn't want her to walk into a house where her father was leaving her for reasons she didn't ask for and would never understand. I left the house a ghost of who I used to be. I didn't go far, just found a cheap rental on the edge of town. A one-bedroom place with a mattress on the floor, a coffee pot, and silence thick enough to choke on. I didn't tell anyone except my brother where I was. No social media, no texts, no calls. I needed time. Time to think, time to feel nothing, time to let everything inside me rot until it stopped burning. The worst part was that I didn't even know who I was angry at anymore. Vanessa? Of course. Myself? Probably. Lena? God, I didn't want to be. She didn't ask for this. She was just a kid, my kid. At least she had been, until science took that from me. A few days later, I got a video call from her. She didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me with eyes so full of sadness it crushed me. Then she asked if I was okay. That was it. No accusations. No questions. Just concern. And I didn't deserve it. I told her I was fine. I lied. I told her I just needed some space. That I wasn't abandoning her, but I couldn't be around right now. I think she understood. But I also saw something in her face die a little. And that killed me more than any DNA result ever could. The divorce papers went out a few days later. Vanessa didn't respond right away. Of course she didn't. She was probably still spinning some fantasy in her head where all of this would just blow over. That maybe I'd come crawling back. That maybe I'd forgive her the way I always forgave the little things, missed calls, cold dinners, absences that stretched too long. But this wasn't one of those things. This was irreversible. She had robbed me of my legacy. Of my bloodline. Of the one identity I had clung to when the rest of life felt like noise, being Lena's father. While waiting for her to sign, I started writing everything down, just like I'm doing now. I couldn't scream. I couldn't punch a wall. I couldn't drink the pain away. So I wrote. I needed to pour this poison out of my chest, word by word, because otherwise I was going to collapse under the weight of it. I'd read stories online of men who'd found out their kids weren't theirs and thought, that could never be me. I loved Lena too much. She looked like me, didn't she? She acted like me. She used my phrases, my stupid jokes. But it was all coincidence. All a cruel accident of nurture over nature. I had built something that felt real. But it wasn't mine. Days turned into weeks. Vanessa finally signed the papers, probably realizing I wasn't bluffing. The court required another DNA test to make everything official. I thought maybe, just maybe, there'd been some error the first time. Some glitch. I prayed for a miracle. But science doesn't care about prayer. The results were final. Lena wasn't mine. Not even close. No shared markers. No common blood. Just a clean, sterile line between us and truth. I held the paper in my hands and wept like a man who had lost a child. Because I had. She was still alive, yes. But the identity that connected us was gone, and no court, no signature, no act of love could bring it back. I didn't attend her birthday that year. She turned 17. Vanessa said she cried the entire day. I don't know. I wasn't there. Couldn't be. I wanted to be. I imagined myself buying her a gift like I did every year, a book, some dumb gadget, something thoughtful. But I couldn't walk into that house and pretend I wasn't grieving someone who was still breathing. We didn't fight over custody. There was nothing to fight for. She wasn't legally mine. The house went to Vanessa, of course. It was the only home Lena had ever known. I didn't contest it. Didn't want to turn this into some bitter legal battlefield. I kept the car, took what little savings I had left, and walked away with what remained of my pride. And yet, none of it felt like justice. None of it felt like closure. I had been cheated, lied to, and discarded like a prop in someone else's story. Vanessa would go on with her life, maybe tell herself she made a mistake, maybe even write a novel about it, twist the facts into fiction. But I wasn't going to let her do it quietly. She had built her career on fairy tales. I was going to make sure the world saw the nightmare she'd lived instead. I had been quiet long enough. Too quiet. While Vanessa continued smiling for cameras and posting cheerful updates on her social media like nothing had happened, I sat in a room surrounded by silence and betrayal. And something inside me snapped. She had built her life on lies, then polished those lies into stories she sold to the world. Her readers adored her, the wholesome author who writes about love, forgiveness, and fate. But there was no love in what she'd done. No forgiveness in what she'd hidden. No fate, just deception. And I decided the truth had to come out. If she could destroy a man's life and keep her reputation intact, then the world deserved to know what she truly was. I started with her publisher. I drafted a long, detailed email. Not emotional, just factual, clear, and backed with every bit of evidence I could gather. I attached the paternity test. I explained the timeline. I sent screenshots of messages where Vanessa admitted to everything. I wasn't threatening. I wasn't unhinged. I was methodical. Precise. Cold. Then I emailed her agent, her press contact, and her PR rep. Each message was the same. Each one packed with the truth. It wasn't about revenge, not at first. It was about exposure. She wanted to be famous. She wanted to be adored. Well, let them adore the full picture. But I didn't stop there. I went to the online communities where she was most active: Facebook groups, author forums, even Goodreads. Anywhere she had a following, I posted my story. Again, I kept it clean, controlled. I didn't use insults. I just told the truth. Her truth. I included proof without revealing personal info about Lena. This wasn't her fault. I focused solely on Vanessa. And people listened. Some posts were taken down eventually, sure. But enough stayed up long enough to gain traction. Readers started commenting. Some said they felt betrayed. Others were furious. A few even reached out to her publisher directly. I didn't ask them to. They did it on their own. And I knew it was working, because within a week, Vanessa called me. I hadn't heard her voice since I left the house. And when I picked up, she sounded different, hardened, almost desperate. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't apologize. She just accused. "You're trying to ruin me," she said. "You've already ruined me." I didn't argue. I didn't deny it. I simply said, "You ruined me first." Then I told her, calmly and clearly, that I didn't want to hear from her again. That if she valued what little dignity she had left, she'd stop calling. She hung up without saying another word. Weeks passed. I kept tabs on her releases. Her latest book didn't perform nearly as well as her previous ones. Reviews started mentioning credibility and authenticity. Her fan base started thinning. I had never felt like the kind of man who needed revenge, but watching the consequences finally catch up with her, it gave me something I hadn't felt in months: control. I couldn't fix what she broke. I couldn't get back the years she stole from me. But I could make damn sure she didn't walk away clean. And still, in the quiet moments, it wasn't Vanessa's voice that haunted me. It was Lena's. The way she said "Dad" on that last call. The way her voice cracked. The way she tried so hard not to cry. I missed her. I missed her more than anything. But I couldn't go back. I knew that if I got too close again, I'd be pulled right back into the confusion, the heartbreak, the questions. I had to keep my distance, not because I didn't love her, but because I loved her too much to lie again. She deserved clarity. She deserved the truth about who she really was. And maybe someday she'd go looking for her real father. Maybe not. But that chapter wouldn't include me. Because I wasn't her father anymore. Not really. There were nights I'd sit in my car parked just 2 streets away from the house I used to call home. Not to spy. Not to stalk. Just to be near. I'd watch the porch light flicker on at the same time every evening, like it always did. I'd see silhouettes move behind the curtains. Sometimes I could hear faint laughter. Once, I saw Lena's shadow on the upstairs window, probably sitting on her bed the way she always used to. And every time I drove away, my hands trembled on the wheel. Not from rage, but from the sheer ache of absence. It's hard to explain what it feels like to grieve someone who's still alive. People think grief comes with funerals, coffins, black suits. But this grief was quieter. More persistent. It haunted everything. A smell in the air would bring back a memory. A song on the radio would wreck me. Once, I passed by the bookstore we used to visit together, and I had to pull over because I was crying so hard I couldn't see the road. I had raised that girl. Taught her how to ride a bike. Stayed up with her through fevers. Cheered at her school recitals. I was her father in every way that mattered except the one that did. The court may not have forced any decisions on me, but life did. I knew I couldn't keep dangling in her world, confusing her, confusing myself. She deserved to move forward. She deserved to have answers. I sent her one last message. Not a goodbye, exactly. More like a pause. I told her I'd always be around if she ever needed me in a real emergency. That I cared about her deeply. But I also said I couldn't keep being a shadow in her life. That I had to go find whatever was left of myself before there was nothing left to give anyone. She didn't reply. And I didn't expect her to. Vanessa, on the other hand, tried once more to reach out. I could tell she was drunk the moment she started talking. Her voice slurred, her words stumbling over themselves like a broken carousel. She rambled for a while, half accusations, half pathetic confessions. Then she said something that stunned me. We should try again. We can fix it. We were good once. And I laughed. I couldn't help it. Not because it was funny, but because it was the saddest thing I'd ever heard. Her version of fixing it meant pretending the past never happened. But I wasn't pretending anymore. I told her she should be grateful I didn't do more. That I could have taken her to court, dragged her through a public trial, ruined her legally, not just socially. I said she should be happy I only burned down her image, not her entire career. She started yelling, saying I had destroyed her life. And maybe I had. But at least now, we were even. The thing is, I don't regret it. Not a second of it. I know some people will think I went too far, that I should have just walked away quietly, been the bigger man. But where was that same expectation when my life was being torn apart without my knowledge? Where was the decency when she decided to let me build my identity on a lie? I didn't owe her silence. I didn't owe her peace. If anything, I owed myself the truth and the chance to scream it loud enough that the world heard. Still, I kept Lena out of it. I never named her. Never exposed her part of the story to anyone who didn't already know. That was the one line I wouldn't cross. Because in the end, it wasn't her fault. She was innocent. Always had been. But innocence doesn't erase reality. It just makes it hurt more. Some days, I wonder where she is, what she's doing. Whether she still keeps that framed picture of the three of us from her 9th birthday, the one where we were all smiling like nothing could ever go wrong. I wonder if she'll ever reach out. If she'll ever forgive me for stepping back. If she'll ever understand why I had to. But I don't chase those thoughts too far. They lead to places I'm not ready to go. Because what do you do when the person you love the most was never really yours? It's been almost a year now. A year since I found out. A year since my identity as a father crumbled in the space of a few web pages and a few seconds of silence. Life has moved on around me, but I still feel stuck in that moment, sitting on the couch, watching Lena scroll through her ancestry report, watching the truth sink in like cold water through cracked skin. People tell you that time heals, but they never tell you what it leaves behind. Time doesn't erase pain. It just teaches you how to carry it without screaming. I've started rebuilding, though I don't really know what that means anymore. I work, I sleep, I eat when I remember to. I see my brother now and then. I've joined a support group, men who've gone through the same thing. You'd be surprised how many there are. Fathers who gave everything only to learn they were nothing but a placeholder. We sit in a circle in a quiet church basement and talk about love, betrayal, fatherhood, and grief. It helps, a little. Not enough. But a little. I still haven't heard from Lena. And maybe I won't. Maybe she's angry. Maybe she feels abandoned. Or maybe she's just confused and hurting in her own way, trying to find her place in a story she never asked to be part of. If she ever does reach out, I'll answer. Always. But I won't push. She deserves to choose what she wants now, who she wants in her life, and what that life looks like. I was never given that choice. And I refuse to rob her of it. As for Vanessa, I don't think about her much anymore. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she's writing again, trying to clean up her public image. Good luck to her. I have no desire to follow her path anymore. She can build a new version of herself from the ashes if she wants, just as long as she keeps me out of the next chapter. Whatever happens to her now is between her and her conscience. I'm done playing the villain in her story. There are days I still look at old pictures. I don't know why I haven't thrown them out. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I never will be. There's one photo I keep in my wallet, a candid shot of Lena when she was 10, mid-laugh, eyes squinting in the sun. She wasn't posing, wasn't pretending. That smile was real. And in that moment, so was I. I was her dad. Biology be damned. If you're listening to this, or reading this, and you've gone through something similar, I'm not going to lie to you. It hurts. It'll change you. There's no clean fix, no magic wisdom, no line that makes it all okay. But you're not alone. We are out here, men who gave our hearts to children who didn't carry our blood. And that love, no matter what the world says, was real. Still is. There's no moral to this story. No neat little bow to tie around the ending. I survived. That's all. Some days, that's enough.
Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, shocked you, or simply made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment, your thoughts, your story, your truth. Subscribe for more raw, real, and unforgettable confessions. And if this story made you feel seen, share it. Someone else might need to hear it too. You're not alone here. This channel is a safe space for those who've been betrayed, broken, and rebuilt.